Hello and welcome to the tactics guides for Scum and Villainy hard mode. This run here is a part pilot run, part guild run. This is a tactics overview for Nightmare's Progression Guild on the Red Eclipse EU server. Dashrood is the first boss of Scum and Villainy. It's very simple. This boss has a couple of mechanics that the DPS need to be aware of. Tank also, but it's not too bad. Scum and Villainy is an operation you can do without two tanks. You can just do with one tank and one DPS with taunt. However, if you're doing this anywhere on Nightmare, it is recommended to honestly have two tanks because the Cartel warlords gets a bit too much. But this is hard mode guide. So Dashrood, tanks will position themselves at the pillar. This is done from a healer's point of view, by the way. The pillar you can see there where the tank is just standing. The idea is you stay there, everybody else gets their back against the rocks / debris so that they don't get thrown into the desert on the knockbacks, because the knockback is 360. So the adds come in, they attack the power converter. As a sorcerer you can set a focus target, as you can see I have in the frame there. You can put a static barrier on it. You can't heal it though, so unfortunately it's not the same as Dread Palace with healing the seed. You're not able to actually do that, but you can bubble it, so that's something to help out. The adds that do go on the power converter can be taunted. Even just one being taunted away can help you manage the DPS output on from the add to the power converter. DPS needs to just AoE burn them down. The boss needs to be moved with the power with the shield, as you're aware from story mode. When a tank gets knocked up in the air, the DPS with a taunt would taunt just to keep control of the boss until the tank lands, at which point the tank would then take the boss back. So, as you can see here, there's a difference from story mode. As the boss has got more HP, you need to manage your time with the shield. Manage your time with the shield, so as you're going through the map to the next shield generator, you have about, by the time you get the shield up, about 40 odd seconds to play with it. You want to make sure that shield gets placed in the last 10 seconds, because you do risk him possibly throwing you when you try to place it. The shield should be taken either by the off tank or a healer. Never DPS, because DPS can get put into the desert. Now for the tactic for the DPS here, if you're put into the desert you must activate your personal shield, and what I recommend to you, depending on the class you're playing, is if you believe your DPS is high enough, you can just kill the rats that come after you. If not, don't worry about it. Just use your knockback and then use all of your speed boosts to get back to the group ASAP, including any self-healing. A Merc, for example, use rocket out, get back as quick as you can, pump your hydraulics, and then continuously heal yourself, just with Koto shot, all that jazz. Emergency scan as well. It's not hard, it really isn't hard at all. You take about 3 shields with you for this, just in case you're chosen more than enough times. Right, so the fight from this point on remains relatively the same. You do the same thing over and over again. Once you reach the 4th shield, if your DPS is good enough, he'll be dead at the 3rd shield, but if it isn't, the 4th one is your last chance. So you've got 4 shields to do this in. It's exactly the same tactics all the way through to the end. Okay, so that is the tactics for Dashrood. Now the fight in the video will carry on for a fair few more minutes. The tactics do not change, it's the same all the way through it. So I am going to skip on to Titan 6 now, I'd say. Titan 6, this boss has a lot more mechanics than Dashrood does. Here is where you're going to have your tanks do a swap mechanic, and also this does get healing intensive as well. Can be a DPS check if you're a little bit low on the DPS, so you might struggle if your DPS can't quite manage it. He has a few defense sequences that he throws out. Defense sequence 1 is just basic, just missiles. Defense sequence 2 though is a lot of missiles. So what happens is if you stack up, you'll take double damage. You want to space apart, but you want to be aware that your healers do need to see you. Alright? So in Defense Sequence 2 comes up, space apart, but make sure you're still within healing range. Healers do need to move, you can't just stand still. Right, here's the mechanic for the tanks. This is enormous grenade. You can work out the tank that gets it. The same tank can get it all the time. The best tank to bring to this is that you can have a combination. 2 tanks is okay, if you want to bring 2 tanks, but even the DPS with a taunt is fine for this. Is have an assassin. The assassin can use Shroud to mitigate all of the damage received from the grenade. So if you're a juggernaut and you're the tank and you've got a DPS sin with you, the idea is you let the DPS with a taunt get kicked first, take the boss, then once he's back up out of the debuff, he then taunts it back after the second airstrike, and then he'll have the grenade on him, he can run away, pop shroud, then you can take control of the boss again after that. If he's a tank, doesn't matter, just do exactly the same thing again, you know. Assassins work well for it, juggernauts are fine. To be honest, all tanks, as long as they've got the cooldown, it's fine. The only tank that struggles is a power tech, because you don't have reactive shield twice in a row because of the cooldown on it. So if you had 2 power techs, you have to work out a proper swap order. That, let's say A tank has had it the first time, B tank has to take it the second time, then back to A, then back to B, then back to A if you go on that long. Okay? Right, so moving on from that, DPS wise, like I said, it's a bit of a check, keep your DPS up, keep it strong. The way of maximising DPS is when the adds come in, whoever gets the adds, just bring them underneath the boss for the tank that has the aggro, to AoE taunt them off you. If you don't want to do a swap at this point, it's too early. Alright, so you bring them to it, AoE them all down, burn them all down together, that way you don't lose any DPS on the boss, you've maximised your output. As you can see here, the rocks. Now, it's not actually a one-shot from the burn, okay, but it does do a fair chunk of damage. So you want to run away to a rock. The nearest ones are for the tanks, the second nearest ones are for melee DPS, the furthest ones is ranged and healers. Okay, that's the basic principle to remember for that one. During this fight, there is a frontal sort of cleave attack that it does, where it does a large series of shots that go streaming off in the distance. So, same with any sort of tank procedure, you do not want the boss facing the raid whatsoever. Okay. Right, healer tactics here. If you've got Sorks, the best way you can do this, and it's very effective, is when he does defense sequence 2, from the bottom of the frame upwards, so the tanks would do this, get this last, is static barrier everybody from the bottom of your frame to the top. The tanks can take more damage than the DPS can. So get everybody else bubbled up and then get them bubbled up at the end. You'll see a few times here, because we have a juggernaut tank here. I think actually both of them were juggernauts this occasion. So a static barrier on them, then just top them up to full health afterwards, because it does hurt a lot, that grenade. An absorb adrenal will also get you through it if you don't have a cooldown. That's one way of getting through it as a power tech, is you can use reactive shield once, then an absorb, then hopefully your shield's back by the next one, if you have to. Alright. So we're nearing the burn phase now on the boss. If you can get it to sort of, if your DPS is really good, you'll have it on its last defensive sequence right here. Alright, if it isn't, then you'll get it on the next one. If it's bad, then he'll jump about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Alright, and I will say this to anyone now: if the boss here, Titan 6, jumps 5 times and ends up in the middle, you will not have the DPS to finish this operation. You will not have the DPS to kill Styrak. That's just, unfortunately, it's the way it is, because he's a very tight situation. I'll get to that when it comes up. As you can see, our DPS was fine. So the boss is now in his last defensive phase, where he converts to this transformer type thing with a flamethrower. Now, for tanks and melee, there are gaps in those flames. Okay, you can see one of them standing there right now. Right, the gaps in the flames, that's where you want to stand. Don't stand in the flames. If you are ranged, stay ranged. Do not stack up though, because you are going to start running the risk of blending the missile damage, because you do get missiles, as you can see here. For healing, the idea is this: we normally just elect one tank to let him die. Okay, just like, don't worry about him at all. Just let him go down. Alright, you just keep the DPS alive, because at this point tanks are irrelevant. Alright, they do a bit of damage, but it's not like the DPS, so just keep all 4 DPS alive for as long as you can to burn the boss. Okay, if you can get everyone alive, that's fine, but don't waste your force power and your energy healing someone that isn't crucial at that point. And there's Titan 6. Okay, next one is Thrasher. Thrasher's a relatively simple boss. It does change a lot from story mode. Give me a second. Right, there we go. Okay, so tactics here. You've got Thrasher. Now the idea is this: you elect one group to go up, and the group that goes up is always ranged DPS. Okay, it's tank and ranged DPS, obviously, and healer. Now what you do is you have your tank position himself, And what happens is you will see the boss start to glow, like right now. So my group goes right here, right in front of the boss, and we all wait there. And a good way of actually helping out with the damage here is you can barrier people. It's not really a big deal in hard mode, but and you go up. Now as soon as you've gone up, the other tank must taunt immediately to get the boss under control to stop the roar. Okay, the roar is very large, but to be on the safe side, what we do is we do move the boss to where the adds are. The idea is the boss is moved, you don't have to move it a million miles away, but that's what we do just to make sure it is actually reaching everything, is move it to where the adds are. Just move it to the adds. If the adds are dead, walk it back to the middle, turn the tank around, walk backwards to where your next target is, and just take them out from there. From the middle, the roar does actually reach every side, but I'm just giving you the safest option, alright? Means a bit more mobility, but at least you're guaranteed that all the adds are killable and you're not just wasting your time. So the group that goes up is permanently up. There's groups of snipers and a demolitionist. You start with the demolitionist first, have all the DPS that are up there, kill the demolitionist first, because he does a little AoE that does a fair amount of damage, and he does target anyone either up or down, and down has got a lot to worry about as it is. Snipers, you take them out ASAP with AoEs, just burn them all down, no problem. What you do is, once you've done that, you wait, get your ranged DPS to do damage to the boss. Okay, now on your mini-map you will see that you're going to have 3 dots come up saying that there's an enemy somewhere around the area, so you just run around. If you have sorcerer DPSs and healers, the idea is this, is once you've done one group, leave phase walks at that location, just so that you know if they come back there again you can easily just jump. So, as you can see here, tactics relatively do not change. There are mercenary firebugs like in story mode. The idea is just don't put them anywhere near the boss. So we elect 2 locations. One's near the balcony on the left as you enter, and the other one is on the right hand side near the gate. The main thing with this is you've got to keep it under control. If a tank hasn't got it under control, it will just keep doing the roar. It does a lot of AoE damage, as you just saw there. Okay. So you keep the fight going, you repeat the procedure over and over and over again. I'll give you an example of what happens if you don't do this correctly. If you don't kill the adds in time, so if there's one set of adds and another one spawns, they end up building turrets, and the turrets will pop out of, you can actually see them right now near to where that static barrier debuff is, on the screen, and they'll pop up there, 2 each side, each corner, and they'll just one-shot all of you. They'll just go bang, 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 and shoot all of you dead. So that's the idea, is you need to make sure those adds go down very quickly. Don't get tunnel vision on the boss. These adds are very, very important. That is the group that's up. It is their job to do it. Right, and so the fight now is pretty much burn from this point on. There is one more set of adds, so we take them out and then it's burn on the boss. It's quite a simple fight, but there is a fair amount of healing going on, and the person downstairs will have a harder time healing up the tank because he's obviously taken the frontal cleave damage. If you are assault, continuously barrier him. It's the same. It's your basic tactics for assault. But if you're a merc, for example, just make sure you've always got supercharged gas ready to use. All right, and then that's Thrasher, which drops an implant, by the way, just in case anyone was wondering. Okay, so that is Thrasher. And moving on to the operations chief. This one will need a bit more explaining because there is a bit more in-depth tactics to this one. Right, you need to set up your groups accordingly. You can no longer steamroll it like you can in story mode. Okay, you have to set up teams. Team 1 is a tank and a DPS, but with, well, blue team, sorry, is tank and DPS, but ideally a DPS with off healing. So a Sork or a Merc, ideally. Gold team, always a healer and a DPS. Okay, gold team takes a lot of damage. In gold team, the healer must help with interrupts on the healer, and also there is a DPS character there as well. One's doing the healing, one's doing the damage. The idea is take that healer out ASAP, because otherwise he's going to just keep restoring the DPS guy up too much. So share your interrupts. Say the DPS takes the first one, you take the second one. Keep people barriered, keep the force power up, keep your your healing going on, and you should get through it. It's pretty much the hardest one to get through. I'll go through the team tactics anyway. Right now this is green team, which is healer and ranged DPS. If you're ranged, you can just stay here at this canopy. You've got range over both the two up there, and also so is the healer, so you can help out with healing and whatnot. Here's a very valid point that I'm going to show you now. You may notice there's some fire coming on my back right now, okay? Now, this is the important thing. If you happen to walk past an ad and pull it, concuss it, do not just walk past it and leave it to somebody else. It's the most rudest thing you can ever do to somebody. So, if you've pulled it, concuss it. There's no excuse for not doing it. Alright? So remember that, if you do pull an ad, just concuss it, because now we've got two of them now, and it made green team a fair bit worse, but we did get through it, it's not a problem. So green team, come here under the balcony if you've got ranged. If you haven't, I'll show you where to go in a minute once the camera angle goes around. Red team is tank and DPS. Just get them dead. It's very simple. Just interrupt to get them dead, pop a cooldown, you'll be fine. Right, there's a doorway on the right for green team. If you've got melee, pull them and go into that little house. Okay, and just kill them in there. Blue team, for the tactics for you, when the tank pulls them, these two are like mercenary carvers. They have a large knockback, they do. So the idea with the knockback is face them away from the DPS. Once the tank's got their attention and they're doing the cast, all you need to do, tank, is just walk straight through them and stand on the opposite side, because they don't move. Once they're doing the cast, they stand there and do the knockback. You can just walk through them to avoid it. Okay? So, now that that's done, then that's the tactics done there for that. That's the main part of the fight here. The boss himself isn't actually that bad. This is the worst part. But then again, to be fair, once you've done this a couple of times, you won't struggle. It's very simple. In fact, once you get used to this, you probably won't pull anything, and you'll get it through absolutely fine. But yeah, here's the idea: is you got to go through this. Only those teams can kill those people. All right, so just stick to your teams. Okay, as you can see, we're all alive, so it's not bad. So then you make your way through. Obviously, you can't mount up because someone pulled. If you didn't pull, you can use your mounts. All that sort of jazz. So you've got 6 minutes on hard mode to get through, which is actually plenty of time. The only point where it's hard is on nightmare, where it's very short, about 3 minutes. Okay, then you have a quick check around, make sure everybody's back. Swords can pull, obviously, and all that jazz just to help out. Now don't worry, once you enter the door to the boss and engage the boss, the door's shut, so if you have got ads following you, they won't go in. As we move into the fight itself with the boss, the tactics here are, ideally, you stack up at first, get your AoE healing down. Once you get this debuff, you start cleansing people as much as you can. Alright, that's the healer's job. If you can self-cleanse, cleanse yourself. But don't stack up if it's going to explode. If you've cleansed, not a problem. If you can't, run away from the group, because it does raid-wide damage if you're close, about 5 meters, I believe. He spawns turrets. The turrets themselves are a little bit tricky. They actually hurt more than the boss does. So the idea is this: as soon as you've got the boss down and he's there, and then he starts spawning turrets, all DPS to the turrets. Just get them dead ASAP. Healers can even help out, just putting dots. They can put dots on the boss to keep a little bit of DPS going on the boss. Overall, the fight is not that intensive. It's not too bad. You probably won't struggle as long as people come together for AoE healing, move apart if they have to move apart when they can't cleanse themselves or cannot be cleansed for any reason. And you honestly shouldn't have too much of a problem. You really, really shouldn't. So that would be that boss there done. And the operations chief. Quite simple, throws a different mechanic into things. You don't get many mechanics like that in the game. So that's the operations chief. Now moving on to a long boss fight, which I won't bore you all to tears. I'll just give you the tactics for it. So this is now Olok the Shadow. Okay. So the tactics for this is at the start here, you'll see from story mode that when most people say all blue, right? Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's not in hard mode. But out on the actual shop floor, you'll see that we put some markers up once the camera turns around. But the idea is this: you cannot have more than 2 front lines or assault droids. So if you add one front line, two assault droids, can't do it. Well, you can survive it, but it gets worse. The idea is that you have a thing called package deal. You have to make sure if you've got two assaults and one front line, okay, you've got to get rid of a front line and also the assault. Okay, you can't have two of the same. That's the thing. You can't have two of the same. So ideally, so you work out, you've got 8 coins, you sit there and you mark the ones that you want, they were equal 8. Okay, as you can see, there's the markers. Don't worry about the artillery droids or the recon droids, they're fine. It's the front lines and the assaults. So, assaults cost 2 coins, front lines cost 1 coin. Okay, so sometimes it is blue, but the ones that cost 2 coins are yellow. Once you click a yellow, it turns red. You can see a picture of it there. So you click the red one, alright, that's 2 coins used up there, so that'll be an assault droid taken away. You do this constantly through the fight, get them all out, make sure all the ones that have been marked are up. I'm not saying you can't do this when they have got package deal, it just hurts more. Okay, so as you can see there, we're taking them away, and you would do that constantly throughout the fight until you end up going downstairs. Once you get once you've got the buyer down, they will start putting gas in the room. You go down just like in story mode, then you come to the door, so you're going to be doing the ads just exactly the same way as story mode. And the idea here is just take them out as you would do normally. Tanks face them away, the artillery droids, that the AoE does not land on the group. Just your basic stuff. And he honestly doesn't change very much from story mode at all. So you get through all of the ads, so they're all gone, all disappeared, no more, nothing to worry about. And then Olok the Shadow comes down himself. Okay, so when he comes down, you're going to have 2 ads, alright? You're going to have 2 ads come down, one shady customer and one arms trader. The idea is 1 tank or a DPS with taunt, and just 1 DPS goes and deals with those. Just 1. The rest of you all focus on the boss. Okay, you burn them down, stun them, interrupt so the AoEs don't hurt the group. Keep burning him down. He has a missile that he knocks out as well. It goes to everybody in the raid, so the more you stack up, the more it hurts. So try and keep an even spacing, but you don't have to worry too much. Honestly, it's nothing that can't be healed through. You keep up the fight over and over again. Keep fighting him down, burn him down each time he jumps, and that's it. It's exactly the same as story mode, to be honest with you. The only real difference is package deal. So that's the tactics for that one. Okay, so that is Olok the Shadow done. I'm going to move on now to the Cartel warlords. Okay, so kill order here. It is they're marked as well. In the marks, it's target, flame, shield, saber. So it's Horik, Vilus Gar, Sunder, Tuchuk. It's the story mode order as well. They're both the same. The only time the order changes is on Nim when there's more mechanics. Alright, so don't worry about this. With Horik, the idea here, although it wasn't done this night, was you want to stack around Horik, but in a round circle. Okay, if his cone, right, I don't mean close either, I mean evenly spaced apart, so that if he's shooting at you, you're not going to overlap somebody else. On hard mode, it doesn't matter, you can just stand there, to be honest. You'll just be healed through and bubbled, it's not a problem. If you want to try and avoid some of the damage, then you can run. The problem is when you run, you might walk into somebody else. So on hard mode, I'd just say just stand there and take it. It's not a big deal. Honestly, you can just be healed through it. It's only on Nim you want to try and avoid it, because it does do a lot of damage. It can kill you. Right, so with Horik, that's the thing with him. Stand around him, burn him down, get him dead. Then you're going to move on to Vilus Gar. When you're on Vilus Gar, you need to stack up on him to stop him jumping around. So Vilus Gar, as soon as you're on him, the guy with the flame, with the horns, jump on him, stick to him, and just burn him down, and get him dead. Moving on from that one, you're going to have... Right, moving on from that one, you are going to move on to Sunder after that. So I'm just going to go through the video quickly here. Vilus may jump to a tank possibly at some point, so you may have to move with him, but most of the time you can try and keep him in one spot. Right, on to Sunder now. Now Sunder, he has an ability called Fixate. So the idea is this: when you're the tank with him, you just got to kite him around. As you can see here, this is the optimal way of kiting him around. Is keep him at this end in a large oval shape. Okay, not up the other sides, not near two chunks, shit like that. It doesn't really matter too much, but just keep him like this. The idea here is everybody stack up, AoE healing. If you've got range like we all had here, stack up, kill him from range. The tank that's kiting him is going to get rooted at certain stages. So if he's been rooted, he could use a CC break to get out of it. It's not really too big of a deal. He can be pulled as well, but it's not too big of a deal. But Thunder will also fixate on someone else. So the tank who's kiting needs to make sure target of target is on, as all tanks should have, and they need to know when it's happening. It will announce it in red as an announcement at the top, but also keep an eye on target of target, because he will need to be taunted back. Because anybody else but a tank taking a hit from Sunder does really hurt. Okay, so you just kite him around, you continue to kite him all the way around, you don't just stand there with him. Okay, so kite him around to avoid the damage. DPS will burn him down, and then we move on finally to 2-chuck. 2-chuck is pretty simple. Moving on, you'll soon see it now. You move on 2-chuck, you stack up on him. Everybody stack up on him, and completely ignore the ads. Do not care about the ads. Do not worry about them. Do not kill them. You just want to take out 2-chuck. So burn him down and just get him dead. And then you mop up the ads shortly after that, and then that's the end of that, and that's the Cartel warlords. Okay, right, that's that dealt with. Now we're going to move on to Styrak. Now Styrak here I will go through in detail. Right, Styrak's the main problem with S&V, because he is the biggest DPS race, DPS check. So the idea here is you'll be spawning in, and you'll have 4 rows of dread guards. You kill the dread guards, make sure that you give the tank enough time to actually build aggro first before you jump in, and don't just jump in. Let the tank taunt them, or just throw a saber at them, and just let them come in row by row by row. The worst thing you can do is just jump in, because then you'll pull all 4 rows and you will be dead. Right, so you take them out. Take out the dread guards, no problem. The dragon comes down. The tank taunts it. Now everybody here, the idea really is you stack in the middle on the big tile, but just didn't go that way at this point. What happened is you need the tank to taunt the boss, and move him around in a sort of a horseshoe type shape around the back. Don't taunt him around around where the throne is, because if you get thrown to the throne, Styrak will just kill you. Right. Now eventually the tank will get pulled by the ad and be strangled, so the DPS need to kill it very quickly. And then get it under control again. When the dragon does spines, because he throws the tank first, then he does spines, everybody stack up, and then the tank stands in front of the group. That way the tank takes the damage and no one else does. Rinse and repeat this procedure several times over, and you'll soon get the idea, as you can see here. So Drion is the tank, he stands in front of us, the rest of us aren't taking much damage. Maybe someone might be standing in the wrong place, but you can see there it's quite well balanced, and it's just Drion that's taking the damage. So as long as he does that, it's way more manageable. Now the last 2 seconds of spines, you move away, because if you stayed in front of the group, he will spit at the group, and you don't want anyone just sitting in acid. Okay, once he's dead, AoE healing in the middle. Everyone meets up in the middle, and you get healed up. Now, just before Styrak comes down, you get a lightning field happen. So what happens is you must static barrier through this, place AoE healing on the floor, just to get through the worst of it. Doesn't hurt too much, but it can be a bit understandable. For some other healers they might struggle, but 2 revifications from Sorks or just Koto missiles easily get you through it. Okay, so when the boss is down, he'll start doing some arcing lightning, a bit like Bronze's arcing assault, but not as painful, no stacks. So just AoE heals on the floor, same shielding. If you've got a cooldown, maybe pop it, just to get yourself through it if you're low on health. Right, once you get to a certain percentage, the boss does this. He does manifestations around him that form a box. The idea is that the box is going to enclose on you. This is a DPS race where everybody will DPS the boss. There is no healing required during this because there's no damage. This is purely a mechanic. You fight the boss, get him down ASAP. Healers can use their basic attacks just to help them get through it. That's not a problem. What you can also do is you can use your dots abilities as well, be it as healers or whatever you wish. Use your dot abilities to get through this. So you can see there that we got through it quite easily enough. You never bring 2 tanks to this fight. Okay, you bring one DPS with a taunt and 1 tank. We have got away with not having a taunt at all, but that's a story for another time. Lightning manifestations. The idea with these, or nightmare manifestations, is what you have to do. You set up an order before you start this fight, where you say 1 DPS goes north, 1 DPS goes south, 1 east and west. So top, bottom, left and right. Healers stay in the middle, they can barrier the DPS, then you can barrier the tanks afterwards because the tanks take less damage. The phases are rinse and repeat, like here's another arcing assault type attack where he will just send out lightning doing damage to everybody. So the main thing you need to worry about here is just group up for your healing. Do not start spacing around too far away. You want to stay exactly where he spawns so that you can DPS immediately, not have to walk to his position. And you'll see here in the video that we just continue this procedure. And as you can see, it's not a problem. When you bring 5 DPS, it's not a problem as long as everyone knows what they're doing. All said and done, some players will always carry others, but the idea is 4.7k per person, per DPS. If you're reaching that amount, you will kill Styrak. If you are not doing it, then you're going to have a hard time. But do not forget that if a couple of you are doing 5.5, maybe some are doing 4.3, something like that, at least the average will balance out as an overall DPS check. If you're not hitting that, then I'm afraid you just simply will not kill it before the enraged timer. When the enraged timer hits during this, if it's during the second dragon, the reanimated kill dragon, if that enrages, it's raid-wide damage everywhere. It's not like one person goes down at a time, it's 3 people that go down at a time and then everyone's just dead within a few seconds. So remember that, you need to have the right DPS for it. So if you're watching this as another guild and you're just thinking about doing a run, you want to learn some bits and bobs, some tricks, remember that it must be on starparse so that you can see it happening, otherwise you're just wasting your members' nights, because all you'll end up doing is spending money in credits and repair bills and you won't actually be killing the boss. Okay, the 6 other bosses are relatively simple, but Styrak has always been a DPS race, so I just want to give you a heads up on that one. So you'll see our DPS here, they are jumping to their designated locations. I'm a Sork and a Merc healer right here, so the idea is that we're in the middle healing up people. I'm throwing barriers out on those who need them the most. There are times where you'll have to stop barriering because you need to start healing, but if you can knock them out fast enough, then it does really help out. Tanking wise for this, it's actually the simplest thing you can do. When you get thrown away, the DPS of a taunt takes the boss, you just jump back to the boss, taunt it back. It's very, very simple. You do that the whole way through. The only bit of movement you have to do is just when you're kiting the dragon around. And as long as you're not kiting it around anywhere near around the north end of the map where the throne is, then you'll be fine. The reason for this is if you did get chucked up the top, Styrak will just kill you when the dragon's down. So, as you can see here, another box phase. Simple principle again, no healing required, just DPSing down. One thing I want to stress out though, some people use their adrenals and stuff like that to get through these phases. That phase is not worth an adrenal. The adrenal should be used on the boss right now when he's actually down. Okay, so nightmare manifestations now. So we all go off and do our job there. As you can see, I'm barriering. And then a little bit of healing. Okay, and then you always meet up right in the middle. You see there's a small tile that's just beneath the large one that's slightly covered in sand. That's exactly where he will spawn for his box phase. So that's where you need to be. You need to be in that particular tile area where we're standing right now, because it saves you running off. Reanimate your kill dragon. Do not DPS the boss, DPS the dragon. The tank taunts the dragon and he takes stacks. You can see there's a yellow debuff on the tank right now. What happens is you can take up to about, we normally do 7, 8, maybe push to 9 stacks, and then the DPS with a taunt taunts off, takes about 3 or 5, so you can't take as much. Alright, it does hurt the DPS with taunt, but the longer you can try and keep it off the tanks, you don't want to lose the tank at this point. Alright, so you swap your stacks over, you heal the guy up through it all, stand in AoE healing, kill the dragon like you see here. Now the tank takes Styrak over to the bridge. Now for the guys here this night, this was the first time for a lot of people, so they panicked a bit. But what happens is you need to get the tank directly under the bridge, and everybody else that's ranged and melee stack where that moisture evaporator thing is there on the left. And the idea for that is if you do get knocked flying away, then you don't have to worry so much. Okay, so you won't get thrown across the map. Basically, you can just return back to the fight. So right now it's burn, 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 burn. The idea here is the tanks keep it under control, but focus your heals on the DPS because they are what's going to win the fight at this point. And there you go. That is Styrak dead. You're just burning down the corner. Use your raid buffs once you've got them back, and there you go. That's the whole fight. So that'd be 7 out of 7 Scum and Villainy hard mode. I wish you the best of luck with that. I hope the tactics were as clear as I could make them. And thank you very much. If you're looking for a guild on the Red Eclipse EU, Nightmares is recruiting. So once again, thank you very much indeed.